Well, there it is. It says we're live, and I say we because I am joined by Mr. Andy Herman, as you can see on the sweatshirt there from Packer Report, Mr. Pack-A-Day podcast himself. Andy, how the hell are you?
1-0, victory Monday. I'm doing freaking awesome. How the hell are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's Monday is always a busy day after a win or a loss, but it always feels a little better after the win. There's no doubt about that. Speaking of Pack Report, I wanted to go over your piece. You had a great kind of breakdown of what you saw after looking at the film. What was your biggest takeaway on the offensive side of the ball? I think obviously the headlines are Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, not really missing a beat. Was there anything as you drilled down past the headlines that you thought either surprised you or confirmed what you saw this summer at camp?
Yeah, I think the two things outside of obviously Rodgers and Adams playing great. The first is that they attacked every area of the field, whether it was using the jet sweeps and the end arounds and the whatever to, stretch horizontally. They hit Davante. They should have hit MVS down the field vertically. I thought Aaron Rodgers looked towards the middle of the field a little bit more, but it was short. It was intermediate. It was long. They attacked left, middle, right. Every area of the field, Minnesota's defense had to cover. Outside of some of the snafus in the red zone and a couple of screens that kind of went awry, that's something that they're probably going to need to work on a little bit this week. They really didn't have any issue with moving the ball on offense. And I think it was just a fantastic game plan from Matt LaFleur. And I thought that was masterful. And I thought the other thing was, and this was noticeable in the first quarter, every single positional player got in the first quarter outside of A.J. Dillon, and he was in by early second quarter. So
even John Lovett saw the field.
It was crazy. I mean, the fact that every single one of those guys, they obviously have two additional players that they can make active on game days now. They made use of all those guys. Even, I know we're talking offense right now, but even Tebow and Vernon Scott got in on defense. Like, they were not hesitant to use players throughout the game yesterday. So those were kind of the two things that were apparent to me on offense.
You talk about the screen game. It's funny because Minnesota, a lot was made about, Pierce opting out, Danielle Hunter on IR, but they still have those linebackers who are some of the best in the business. And it was funny you mentioned the screens because it was kind of like every time they tried to give him some kind of misdirection or eye candy, Kendricks and Moore just weren't having it. I think a lot of that, you got to tip your hat to Minnesota as far as that goes. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think the headline for Packers fans coming out of this game is why can't they step on the neck, right? Where they get these leads. This reminded me a lot of the Dallas game last year where they come out to this explosive offensive, production and they have a lead. And it's not like you can pinpoint and say, well, they're playing prevent defense because I didn't think they were. They kind of ran their stuff and just got beat in really kind of, I don't want to say mystifying, but really unusual ways for the guys that got beat, whether it's Jair giving up a touchdown, whether it's, it looked like Savage got taken advantage of on that seam route. It's just weird how this team can be so good in situational football on the offensive side of the ball. If you're talking 4-minute grinded out offense, or if they want to go quick up tempo stuff, but you get to the defensive side of the ball and it just seems situationally they are a bit lost, at least early on.
Yeah, to some extent, I get playing prevent defense in that situation, but then you better as hell prevent the big plays, and they weren't preventing the big chunk plays. And Matt LaFleur made mention of that as well. It's one thing to maybe play a little bit more softer and keep things in front of you, but then you can't be giving up 15, 20, 25-yard plays and touchdowns to Adam Thielen on multiple plays. So as you were talking about it, the thing that came into my head was situational football. You hit on it perfectly. In those situations, Darnell Savage, you can't let somebody behind you. There's no use jumping around.
Why? Just stay back, and you are the last line of defense.
Make it happen in front of you. You said mystifying. I think that's the frustrating thing is like every single time it didn't feel like Minnesota did anything that special to earn the extra yards or it was kind of Green Bay at times beating themselves. Even little things. If you want to say, we're going to let them dink and dive down the field, maybe get some points. Well, then you have one play on those 2-point conversion plays on each of those. You gave up 2 2-point conversions when you basically kind of know it's coming. And then, even the drive right before the half was super frustrating as well, where you basically give them 3 points. I know that penalty was whatever, but even the run beforehand where all you do is set the edge on that play, they run out the clock, the quarter's over, the half is over. Then the next play, you cannot let a tight end get up the seam. I think it was a tight end on that play, up the seam in the middle of the field. So just some situational football that's going to get cleaned up and way, way, way better to learn those lessons in a win than in a loss.
Absolutely. To David on Facebook, who says the Packers need defensive ends that can play. Lowry and Lancaster don't cut it. I actually thought Lancaster played a surprisingly solid game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he was J.J. Watt or anything, but I was pleasantly surprised. Not only live, I noticed a couple plays, but I went back and watched this morning, and I thought he held up all right.
Yeah, it's that group in particular is one I'm going to really look forward to as kind of the all-22 comes out. But I didn't see anything egregious. There were a couple big plays where Minnesota was able to take advantage of over-aggressiveness from Green Bay's defense. I want to see if that was just pure over-aggressiveness, if that was just players getting beat. That's not something I usually pay super close attention to on my first walkthrough or rewatch. But I didn't think there was anything egregious from Lowry or Lancaster at first glance.
Super chat from Chris. Thanks for the support, buddy. Thoughts on the usage of Josiah DeGuara? I mean, I was pleasantly surprised at his relish when it came to the blocking in the run game. That's certainly not something you can ever get a real taste of in camp when things aren't live. But man, he seemed to bring it in that regard.
Yeah, when I did my big breakdown of his film after Green Bay drafted him, one of the things that I noted is if he's just, one-on-one with a defensive lineman or a linebacker in a hole and it's physical on physical, he's okay. He's kind of a get in the way guy. But when you get him in space and you get him moving, he can take out some people and he can clear a lane. And he showed that on the play where Alan Lazard on the end around takes out two players with a cut block. He's exactly what Matt LaFleur wants at that position. I know you were a big Danny Vitale guy a season ago and wanted a little bit more usage out of him. I know.
I would have liked to see him more in the passing game. I get why they didn't love him in the running game because he did have a tendency to kind of overcommit sometimes and whiff on blocks because of it. But I did love him in the passing game. But the thing is with DeGuara, I loved him already out of the passing game. I was really kind of trepidatious about how he would look in the running game. But damn, yesterday, I mean, that's a hell of a debut.
He looked good. I'm excited about him.
What do you think about this offense as far as clearly, like you mentioned earlier, they had some issues in the red zone early on, but once they got cooking, they put up a ton of points, the most since I think 1919 for a season opener, which is insanity. But what did you see as far as you mentioned the usage of all the different types of personnel, but also you saw some old standbys when it comes to Rodgers and Adams, and we saw MVS, obviously have his up and down game. I think we're going to have to come to expect that from MVS. And then Alan Lazard got involved. How surprised were you that it was so centered around the wide receivers and the tight ends seemingly kind of were not the forgotten men because they were obviously utilized in both the run and the passing games, but mostly as blockers and not as targets? Yeah,
I really like this game plan overall. And I think sometimes, we've been critical and everyone's kind of been critical of Matt LaFleur, Mike McCarthy in the past of when you have a hot hand of maybe not just riding it when that hand is hot. And Davante Adams was hot yesterday. Like he was not going to get covered by any of those Viking, corners one-on-one. He had an absolutely fantastic day. And until Minnesota came up with a plan to stop him, Green Bay was going to continue to attack him. And I know he had some of the big plays, but some of those just quick, catches on third downs on those easy out, that's stealing. That's Jordy Nelson, Aaron Rodgers, same page, third and whatever. And it's going to Jordy Nelson and it couldn't stop. The same thing with Davante Adams yesterday. It was third and 5, 6, 7. It didn't matter. That was Davante
over and over again. That's the thing, especially early.
It was beautiful. So I love the fact that they rode the hot hand. And then secondly, again, if you want to attack weaknesses on defense, I think that's something that Matt LaFleur does an incredibly good job of. Yesterday, the weakness was the pass rush. Yannick Ngakoue did not look like he was, up and running in that Minnesota defense yet. Danielle Hunter's gone. There's nobody else to put pressure on the quarterback. They didn't do a ton of exotic blitzing. When they did, Rodgers got it out of his hand quickly. And then you have, corners that are inexperienced or frankly, just not very good. And Matt LaFleur attacked those. So I think in different games, he's going to use different personnel. Quick, I broke it down, earlier this offseason, almost saying it's like a Brewers Craig Counsell platoon lineup where you've got your two guys in the middle.
That's apt. That's very good. That's good.
You've got Huron Yelich, you've got Jones and Adams, and then you're platooning everyone else everywhere else dependent upon the pitching matchup. And I think Matt LaFleur is going to do a really nice job of that this season.
Corey Mansky, thanks for the super chat. Hi, guys. Just me, or was the Packers offense more creative yesterday? What did you think? Because I think at times they pulled out some nice creative flourishes, but at the same time, there were parts where it was pretty much just line up and go, and I kind of knew what to expect. I don't know. I thought there was a little bit more creativity, but it's funny, you go and you watch the Chiefs or you go and you watch some of these other offenses and you're like, man, that you see play after play after play. Whereas with the Packers, I think it's a real mishmash of really traditional stuff with more kind of maybe, like I said, flourishes rather than all out creativity. What did you think, Andy?
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. You know, the fact that they were able to be successful on offense and had 40 some minutes of offense, they were able to run a ton of different things. I don't think, you know, to your point, I don't think anything was that exotic where you had to go back and look at it and say, what the hell was that? I've never seen that before. You know, you're going to get a couple of those out of Andy Reid every week, and maybe Matt Shanahan's going to come up with something like that, or Kyle Shanahan, excuse me, he's going to come up with something like that every week. But I thought overall they were able to mix things up really, really well. I think the overall game plan, you know, trying to run, you know, one concept and then run something off of it. You saw little things like that throughout the game, which again, because you had 40 some minutes of offense and 80 plays of offense, basically, I think it just kind of looked that way because they were able to get to so much stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Michael asks, how good is Elgton Jenkins? His ability to move around the offensive line. He's going to have a great career. Michael, thank you for the super chat. It was interesting because Jenkins obviously held up at right tackle. It's clear he can play out there. Now, obviously, like you said, he's probably going against number 2 or even a number 3 rusher at times, but he just blanked guys. And to be able to step in from the guard spot and do that, obviously that's incredibly valuable. And if you're the Packers, it's got to be reassuring to know that you've got that in your back pocket. How did you think he held up?
I thought he held up great. And, you know, I think this year it's going to be, you know, Matt LaFleur has been very adamant about wanting to get his best players on the field. So whether they need him at right tackle, left guard, center, wherever he's needed, I think he's going to be to get the best 5 on the field. But I want to ask you, if you're the Green Bay Packers, long-term, where does Elgton Jenkins have the most value for you? Is it that left guard where he's been fantastic? Is it center where he could be a mainstay if Corey Linsley is gone next season? Is it right tackle where you bump Billy Turner back into guard next year and maybe move on from that contract? What's the best long-term case, you know, and situation for Green Bay and him?
It's funny. Long-term, I think you probably want to put him at right tackle. As they're not easy to find. They're infinitely more valuable to you than a guard is. I don't think there's any question there. But for the 2020 Packers, I like him at guard.
Yeah.
It's what they've run all offseason. Obviously, they didn't have OTAs, minicamp, et cetera. But, you know, I know he practiced at right tackle a little bit towards the Vikings game, but it's not like they ran a ton of live stuff in those practices. I just think you signed Wagner for a reason. Yeah. You know, go let him be the right tackle. And you saw, and that's the other thing that kind of I thought was funny yesterday is like Wagner stepped in and was fine.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anything egregious. They operated the offense just fine. Like why break up the continuity of your offensive line just because I understand the idea of wanting to get quote unquote the best 5 out there. But I think at this point for this season, Jenkins and Bakhtiari together, you can dominate on that left side. So yeah. I don't know. I think long-term, like you said, I think long-term, probably you want him at tackle if he continues to hold up and look as good as he looked for a very brief stint yesterday.
No, I agree.
It'll be interesting to see how that develops throughout the year, especially now with news. Lucas Patrick should be okay for Sunday. Lane Taylor doesn't sound very good. You know that line's probably going to get jumbled up again.
And I mean, to that point, you would think that, you know, Wagner at right tackle moving forward makes sense. Right guard, if Billy Turner is healthy, he's there. If not, it's Lucas Patrick. Linsley at center, you know, Jenkins at left guard, obviously Bakhtiari at left tackle. You would think that that's probably what they're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. DK, thanks for the super chat. Aaron Rodgers is allowed to snap with less than 1 second on the clock. Anxiety. Well, anybody who's watching the Cheesehead TV live watch party yesterday knows that Packerman didn't make it out alive because after I think it was the 5th timeout or something that they took. It was in the second half. The second timeout, I think, in the second half, I absolutely lost my mind. Which, hey, I'm not proud of it, but I'm not hiding from it either. You know, it is frustrating though. It's especially in the second half when those timeouts are so valuable. I mean, I guess in the end it doesn't matter because they ran away with it, but in a closer game, that could really be the difference, and I hate it.
It seems insane to me that I understand maybe using one in the first half because whatever, it's not. But when games come down to needing timeouts at the end of a game, timeouts are finite.
Which they often do in the NFL.
Yeah, like what, probably 50% of games, timeouts are finite. You get 3 of them. No matter what, you cannot get them back. Once you use them, they are gone. 5 yards for a delay of game can easily, and not maybe easily is the wrong word,
especially but when you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. Like, so you went from 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 10. So what?
Exactly.
Timeout is infinitely more valuable.
there's some situation, circumstance, if you're on a, 3rd and inches or something and it's a huge play, whatever, I can understand it in some certain, situations. But if it's your normal whatever play, take the 5-yard penalty, try to make it up. If not, I would rather punt and, and not convert that third
timeout. Yes.
And use the timeout because they're
at the end of the game. No question. I've had a couple people ask now, and I'm curious to get your thoughts as far as anything you may have seen. I didn't look extensively at how he played. Like you said, with the line stuff, you really like to get that end zone view. But how did you think Runyon held up? I mean, I was asked this on the live chat this morning, and my only response was, and I had rewatched the game at that point, but you don't notice him. And the fact that they could run the offense bodes well for him.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. There were a couple plays that I noticed. One, it looked like he maybe missed his guy a little bit. It didn't really affect the play. There was another play on Aaron Jones's rushing touchdown where he made a nice combo block, got to the second level, got just the tiniest piece of Eric Kendricks that just allowed Aaron Jones to kind of get in the end zone. So another player I'm super pumped to watch on all 22. But at first glance, I thought, again, nothing egregious, and I thought he held up well, especially, Chris Barnes, John Runyon, some of those rookies playing no preseason, no nothing on the road in Minnesota, divisional.
How about Barnes, man?
Crazy.
Come on. What a story. This kid gets cut. He's on the squad, gets brought back up, and is literally the first undrafted linebacker to start for the Green Bay Packers since the merger. And he played well.
I wish I would have asked that question better to Matt LaFleur, because I really want to know how the process goes. Did they literally? Oh,
I thought that's funny you say that, because I thought you asked it fine. I thought Matt really punted. Like they don't want to talk about guys like that, because if for whatever reason they have to send somebody back down, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're always so paranoid about that kind of stuff.
No, I get that.
Your question was good.
I want to know, because did they release him just taking the gamble that, no one's going to claim him and we know we can get him back? Because that is quite the gamble to take if dude's going to be your starting middle linebacker in week 1.
It's a calculated gamble, but it's not that. I don't think it's that huge of one. In the world of the NFL, where literally 1,000 guys are going to get cut over a weekend, plus, the chances of someone like snapping him up are pretty minimal. And as well as I do, this is what happens to you and I and everyone in Packers fandom when we're watching the Packers day in and day out, consuming everything, watching practice, etc. We start getting these thoughts about guys, about they're so precious, and the personnel group, and where they really make their money is being able to step back and have that view of okay, yes, it's a bit of a risk, but no,
to your point, if he would have gotten claimed, I would have been beyond shocked. Well, there was 30 players throughout the league. He wouldn't have even been in my top 5 of undrafted free agents that got cut that I would have expected to get claimed. That being said, it still seems crazy that they're having the discussions of him potentially being their starting linebacker in week 1.
Right. And they're cutting him.
No matter what, I'm with them 1,000,000%.
I feel you there.
They totally got away with it. Just is still. So I wish I could have been on the wall during that conversation of how that went.
Patrick, thanks for the super chat. When and where can we see the all 22? You need to subscribe to Game Pass. NFL Game Pass has it. Just got my app working this morning after bouts of hell with Game Pass. It's up and running now. And usually the all 22 is available 24 hours after the game is over, or sometimes longer, dependent. Austin, thank you for the super chat. Hi, guys. Yesterday, I saw that drafting Davante Adams was my best fantasy football pick. What a beast. Jair looked like a top 5 cornerback. Any word on Clark? Nothing on Clark yet. I'm sure that will come out probably this afternoon. I would look to Rob Demovsky. He usually breaks all the health news. What did you think after Clark went out? How did you think they held up front?
I think they got lucky in the fact that Minnesota had to put up a bunch of points and not consistently run the ball, because even when Clark was in there early, Dalvin Cook wasn't exactly having issues running the football. So that's 1A of on the newswire this week of what I'll be looking at is the health of Kenny Clark. I've gone back all the way to last year saying that man may be the most important just based on the depth along that defensive line. I shudder to think without Kenny Clark what the run defense looks like, because it could be shaky even with Kenny Clark. So that's a holding your breath, fingers crossed sort of moment when he goes out of the game.
I'll take a few more here. George says the Barnes tackle on the Dalvin screen pass was the play of the game. Thoughts? George, I'm not going to agree with that one. I think it's either Jair's safety, which he literally called himself. It was not a pressure call. or Jair's interception because of the swing of the game in both of those plays. What did you think, Andy?
1,000,000% agree. I go the safety just because they drive all the way down. They get the field goal. They kind of stall out. Minnesota gets the touchdown. They drive all the way down again. And now all of a sudden on 2 fantastic drives, you have 3 points to show for it. You're down 3-7. Minnesota takes over. Minnesota goes down, and even if they switch field position, but if they go down and they score, you're really, not feeling great about things at that moment. To get 2 points, get the ball back, and then kick a field goal and go up 8-7. I thought that was a major game-changing moment. But nice play by Chris Barnes.
It was the play that really made me sit up and go, oh, because I literally said to myself, who's 51? Oh, right. Because I thought like, wait a second, I thought we let go of Fackrell. Well, what's going on here? And then I realized it was not Fackrell.
DJ Smith is back.
Right. Thoughts on Kirksey's play overall? Good question, Duke. I thought he was solid, but I didn't see him really jump out in any way.
Yeah, he had a couple stops right around the line of scrimmage. There were a couple other plays where I thought he let Dalvin Cook, I think it was Cook, maybe it was Madison, get by him. I think that is a massive case of that's the guy's first game in about a year, and he's just kind of working off a little bit of rust. That's a perfect example of a guy that would have really benefited from even like 20 to 25 snaps in preseason just to kind of get a little bit of that rust off. No live tackling for him in training camp at all. I think he's going to be a major player for Green Bay this season, but I think yesterday was just kind of working out some of those kinks a little bit.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. There you go. All the latest here with Packers football. I got Andy Herman, Pack-A-Day himself, Mr. Packer Report in the sweatshirt, looking good, holding it down. Make sure you check out his stuff at Packer Report. He's got a great breakdown from watching the film, or at least the broadcast of it. Make sure you check all that out. Make sure you check out Pack-A-Day. Andy, can't thank you enough for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me. Can't wait to do it again.